Sub versus dub, an argument that's plagued the anime community as a whole since the days of early Dragon Ball Z. Both have their merits most of the time, though people who pick a side usually don't, only going as far as to say it's better or more convenient for each respective way to watch. And while both of those arguments are true, they're pretty shallow compared to what can really be said on both sides. So here I am to make the last video on this topic you'll ever need to see. Now the best video I've seen on this topic was the one RDC made on it years ago. It's also the only one I've seen on this topic. And it was a pretty mid video to be completely honest. The example they gave on this One Piece scene was pretty bad since there was hardly any difference between the dub and sub. I mean honestly, there was so many better examples of Japanese voice actors and I quote, making it sound like their brother was actually dying in the studio. Now, if you wanted some real examples of sub actors putting more emotion into their character, then I've got you covered.
No fair! It's not fair, damn it! Why are you helping her anyway? After all the things that you did to my friend Kite! Gon! Why? I want you to tell me! You said you'd protect your little brother, remember? You promised me you wouldn't die!
Shit! 行くぞ Cream, hang on!
どっちか当たってみるよ。
なるほど。仲間の居場所を聞き出すために私たち
Prison in the Necropolis, huh? I'll go check out one or the other.
So that was it. You wish to know your comrade's whereabouts.
I'm going to roll all over you! I'm going to roll all over you!
Let's cut this shit off, bro.
I gotta
cut this shit the fuck off!
A pun, bro? Really? That's why you lost in the dub, cause you out here yelling puns instead of the more bizarre route of yelling Also, you said aura instead of useless like you used to.
It's useless, 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 useless! It's too late! Time to die!
Also, the dub says copyright safe versions of stand names and regular names, like changing Anasui to Anastasia for some reason, unbeknownst to me. Also, they just scream instead of yelling. Also, I can't believe people are actually out here watching this adventure dubbed to begin with. So yeah, there are a plethora of other examples of Japanese acting being better than American, but I think those do a pretty good job of backing up my claim. Oh, and by the way, I'm exclusively comparing American and Japanese, not only because English is my primary language, but because anytime I hear a dub for another language, it's almost always 9 steps down from the original, and I don't think that's just because I don't speak their language. Of course, there are other advantages to watching an anime sub besides the acting quality, like the fact that you get to see and hear the material in its original dialect the way it was meant to be seen. If you don't think that ever matters, just know that depending on the anime, watching it in dub or sub actually could change a lot about the show overseas. The anime most affected by something like this that I can think of would be Gintama. It's no secret that Gintama has a lot of jokes and references to other anime. I mean, the show is pretty much known for that. But what people don't talk about is the fact that they also make a lot of jokes about Japanese culture, workspaces, history, and even their own language, which, if you couldn't guess, wouldn't translate to English audiences very well. In fact, from what I can tell, the dub for Gintama only has the first batch of episodes done, and if you've seen half the jokes that are in Gintama, it's pretty obvious why. I mean, how are you gonna make a joke about the word son meaning Mr., Mrs., and the number 3 at the same time in not Japanese? You can't, and while for some other anime they could probably work around it since it would likely be a rarity to have that kind of joke, in Gintama, those kinds of jokes are everywhere, so the job is way too difficult to be worth dubbing. Even outside of an extreme example like Gintama, there still might be some more down-to-earth joke that still wouldn't get past the scripting phase, likely getting lost in translation or something to the point that the joke is completely different from the original. So yeah, there's all that. Another point for sub is that you'll get the episodes earlier, and while dubs have been better at keeping up with their Japanese counterpart, the fact remains that the Japanese version is still produced and released first 9 out of 10 times. A pretty subjective point is that sometimes the subtitles can distract you from the poor animation going on above them, looking at you 7 deadly sins. Other than those points, there isn't really any other bonuses to watching sub, except for some anime like JoJo, where if you watch it dub, you aren't a real fan. You're just some schmuck listening to white dudes butcher Well, generally for most anime, the sub is much better than the dub. Some anime dubs are just as good as a sub, made better by the fact that you don't have to read subtitles. These I generally watch in dub for the reason I just stated. Anime like this are Soul Eater, the first part of Naruto, and while I haven't watched it in dub, from what I've seen, the dub for Vinland Saga seems pretty solid as well. I specify the first part of Naruto and exclude Shippuden for a multitude of reasons. The first one being that Principal Perry is still voicing a teenage Naruto even into adulthood. People often complain about her voicing Naruto at all, but I honestly don't have a problem with it in the first part. It's what I'm used to for the child version of Naruto, and I can't imagine a different voice saying,
Believe it!
or
That's my ninja way!
For Shippuden, however, I can't accept such a scratchy voice for this teenager holding a tailed beast inside of him. Pause. And yes, I know he had the same respective voice actor in the Japanese version as well, But even so, at least it sounds a little deeper or rather different compared to his kid counterpart. Naruto's voice isn't the only one that I have a problem with in Shippuden though, as you can probably guess by the statement that started this topic. Like, I know it's just subjectivity here, but I'll always prefer the performance from Sasuke's voice actor in Japanese Shippuden more for the more angry approach to the character compared to the more edgy approach the voice actor stuck with in the dub. Outside of the main characters and performance biases, I also notice similarities between villain voices. I often hear dub watchers say that all Japanese voices sound the same, and they sometimes can't tell who's talking, which, while I can relate to on occasion, usually if more than one character is talking at a time, the people who make the subtitles will mark the words with their respective characters by colors nowadays. After that, it is up to you to know the character's method of speech. That isn't hard to tell, by the way. Sometimes characters do have practically the same voice, and I can't argue that, but more often than not, there's something that will let you know who's saying what. And if not, it's your fault for not knowing enough of the Japanese language. Where was I going with this? Oh right, Pain and Madara have the same voice in the dub. I noticed in the dub of Naruto Shippuden that they tend to give the big baddies the same deep voice as if to try and make them more imposing. I swear, it's like they looked at the big baddies and said to themselves, okay, this has got to be the last villain of a series. Spoiler alert, it's not, even if one of them should have been. And the next major antagonist will have the same voice as the last one. First it was Pain, then Obito before he took off the mask, then it was Madara. Hell, even Kakuzu has a voice only made different by a slight vocal difference. And by that I mean while his voice is still more just deep than having actual character, it still has enough personality to it outside of its base. Kind of ironic considering how forgettable he is. Also, before I move on to the anime where the dub is just better than the sub, I feel I should mention this anime now. Dragon Ball. Specifically Z. I'll always prefer the dub for the OG Dragon Ball, though I am watching it in sub right now, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway, Dragon Ball Z, the one that everyone and their mom has seen, whether it be recently, growing up, or coming out of the womb. Unfortunate thing about that is that I can almost guarantee you that everyone in those groups saw it in a different version. I think there's like 4 different versions of the Z dub in the US alone, so I'm not even trying to get into dubs from other countries with this one. Well, besides Japan, of course. Everyone who grew up watching Dragon Ball Z in America more than likely saw it in the Ocean dub or Funimation dub. Anything outside of those is obsolete, and if you came up watching something like the Orange Bricks,
Stop it. Get some help.
so both the dubs have their problems, Funimation having the most glaring one in my opinion, yet despite their flaws, people still look back on both of them nostalgically. Before I get into the problems with these early dubs of Dragon Ball Z, I think it should be known that I hold no memories of either except for the Buu Saga of the Funimation dub. The rest I watched in Kai, which is a whole other story on its own. Both dubs have similar issues with translations, lip movement, scripts, and overall quality. They're both equally significant in being a downgrade from the original, whose voice actors were in their prime at the time of recording it. As I said before, however, there is one major problem many people, including me, have with the original broadcasting for the first Funimation dub of DBZ on Cartoon Network, and that's the music. Don't get me wrong, there are good songs to be found in Bruce Faulconer's work, with a couple of my personal favorites being the song that plays when Gohan defeats Cell a final time, and the Super Saiyan 3 theme for obvious reasons. The problem isn't necessarily the music itself, more so than how repetitive it is, which is why I mainly like the Super Saiyan 3 theme for the moment it punctuates, and why I genuinely believe Cell's theme is an incredibly overrated and is as garbage as the rest of the soundtrack. I don't care what Akira Toriyama thinks about the song, it's one of the most repetitive songs in Bruce's library and should suffer as much as the rest because of it. Phew, now that I've gotten that off my chest, let's talk seriously about these dubs. In case you couldn't tell, I've been biding my time trying my best not to talk about this because no matter what I say, I know I'm still gonna piss a large portion of the DBC fandom off because we all get butthurt over small things pretty easily. I mean, where do you think the "Can he beat Goku" meme came from? First, we'll talk about the Ocean dub, and upon reviewing it for research sake, I've discovered that it actually sucks. Like, a lot. I'm not gonna get too much into it, but let's just say that it's not the voice actors, it's the voices. What I think they tried to do is make the English voices of the characters akin to that of the Japanese voices, which doesn't work for a multitude of obvious reasons. Most profound of which being the fact that almost everyone in the Japanese version has a high-pitched voice, so translating that into English is a high order, one that only Team 4 Star has achieved as far as I can tell. Other than the less than stellar performance though, there isn't really anything of note to say. I thought for the longest time that this was the dub that used Roose Falconer's score, but apparently that was the other dub. Funimation's original dub is the one that most people are likely nostalgic for. Whether it be the dub of the original broadcast, the Orange Bricks, or Kai, if you watched the dub in North America, it was likely the Funimation version. While I said people likely experienced a different version of the show dubbed back when they were young, in researching for this show's dubs, I found that they all probably saw a different version of Funimation's dub, which do differ pretty greatly. The original being arguably the worst, it's unfortunate that it's the one people experience the most as a youngin'. What's even more unfortunate, however, is the fact that the second most experience is that of the Orange Bricks. There's plenty of videos online talking about how bad these are as a whole, so only talking about the voice acting itself, I'll leave it at okay. They use stronger language for whatever that's worth to you and change some of the characters' voices entirely, but that's not really noticeable until the Garlic Jr. arc. Everyone's favorite arc. By the way, people mistake Team 4 Star for giving us Cell saying,
Oh, how cute! He named it. Oh shit!
Against Vegeta's Final Flash, when it actually originated in an Orange Brick dub like this.
Oh shit!
That's basically the only good thing to come out of the Orange Bricks, so to conclude the talk of these dubs, I'll just say watch the sub. Look, no matter what subtitles you watch, it'll still be better than watching any dub of the original Dragon Ball Z. Really, dubs for Dragon Ball don't get preferable to the original Japanese version until Funimation dubbed the OG Dragon Ball a second time. And while that might be nostalgia talking, I still think the dub for Dragon Ball is definitely worth the watch if you don't want to watch it in subbed. The voice acting is pretty good from what I can remember, and you should just watch it because more people need to watch the OG Dragon Ball. To this day, I can still remember the emotion put into Goku's voice when he reunited with his grandfather in that tournament at Baba's palace. And I only ever viewed that section of the story once, so if I can remember that all these years later, then it has to be a great moment in the dub. Anyway, to wrap up the talk about Dragon Ball Z, I'll say what Geekdom 101 said. Watch Kai if you want to watch the show dubbed, and watch the original in its original language, because the Japanese voice actors were at their prime in the days of Z, and the English were at their prime in the days of Kai. And he didn't say the rest of this, but an argument could be made for the last part in Dragon Ball Super, excluding Bardock's voice. Especially with Sean Schemmel, since in Dragon Ball Super he puts on some of his best performances on multiple occasions. And counting Battle of Gods as part of the Super era, he puts on what I think is his best performance in that movie in particular. If you know, you know. Onto the anime where you might as well watch the dub of the sub because there's practically no issues with the dub at all. I can look at you watching the sub for them and say, why aren't you watching that anime dub? Support your fellow American.
Bitch!
We have quite a few of these actually. Death Note, both Full Metal Alchemist series, Cowboy Bebop, Dragon Ball Z movies, Yu Yu Hakusho, Ghost Stories, and Kirby Right Back at Ya. Yes, I'm serious about the Kirby one as well. First up, I know what I just got through talking about with Dragon Ball Z, but hey, for the movies, Funimation used to put rock and metal music in the background of the fights. I believe they stopped at the first Broly movie, but I could be wrong about that. And while yeah, it is hokey, cheesy, and all that other stuff, you gotta admit, it still has a certain charm to it, and if nothing else, it's still amusing to watch. An official Metal AMV for a few of the Dragon Ball Z movies, I'm pretty sure almost all of which feature disturbed music. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the more serious takes on the list, starting with Death Note. A series beloved by most and a bulk of people's first anime, if not one of them at least. Death Note is regarded as one of the best and most different Shonen Jump series out there, and for obvious reason. Its success even spawned a live-action movie that met obviously mixed reviews as most live-action anime would. Though you would be surprised to know that the original creators of Death Note actually liked the movie. But live-action movies are a whole topic on their own. How's the dub for the show?
I'll take a potato chip. and eat it.
It's fantastic. Most people, including me, have experienced this show in dub only, and for good reason. Light Yagami's voice actor Brad Swale puts on an amazingly convincing and therefore creepy performance as the crazed graduate, giving sinister laughs in line with that of the Japanese laugh. Now, to come clean, I do prefer the Japanese laugh, though that's mostly because of the grave scene, which I gotta say, that's still one of the most chilling scenes I've ever seen in an anime. L's voice is unforgettable in the dub, being simple, yet having a certain uniqueness to his voice and speech pattern. Alessandro Giuliana does a spectacular job giving that genius edge to L's voice without falling into something unpleasant to the ears or making him seem generic, because L is anything but. Other than those two, I suppose another standout is Ryuk. Just another memorable performance whose voice is otherwise pretty generic in the Japanese version. Misa has a generic pop female singer voice in the English-speaking media, which suits her because that's exactly what she is. Other than them, pretty much everyone else in the cast gives a wonderful and memorable performance from beginning to end. Light's laugh is different in the dub, which you'll find in most dubs. They often change small things in big moments like Vasto Lorde Ichigo's roar in Bleach. There really wasn't a need to change it, especially with how ferocious it is in the sub, but it is still interesting to hear the different takes on it. I guess their motivation behind changing it was how hollows in general sound in Bleach, sounding like an echoing phantom of the night rather than a monster on the hunt like Ichigo in the sub. Both are fine, but I still prefer the rawness of the Japanese roar. I digress though, because unlike Bleach, in Death Note, both maniacal laughs are equally hysterical and a joy to listen to if you just enjoy genuinely great voice acting like moi. Full Metal Alchemist needs no introduction. If you're an anime fan, you know why it's often regarded as one of the best anime ever. Well, why Brotherhood is at least. Either way, you can't deny that they both have fantastic dubs, with it being the only language I personally have ever watched them in. From the days of 4:3 ratio to the ending of Edenao, each starting their own respective families. Each voice actor managed to keep up their vocal performance to make every character feel like their own person, sometimes even more so than the Japanese version. Vic Mignogna will always be giving the best performances, and his role as Ed here is no different. I only bring up him specifically because of his career derailment after a certain drama event. But the other characters are still great as well. Al, for example, has a different voice in the two series, and I think his Brotherhood voice is a lot better and less, for lack of a better term, annoying. Not trying to offend the original voice actor, of course. After all, she was playing a child in a suit of armor, but I feel and think that his Brotherhood voice is overall better, much like every other aspect of the show. Honestly, the only thing you'd be missing if you watch the dub is Scar and Wrath sharing their name, which is done in English, but in Japanese it's 10 times funnier.
10年も夢も心のせりけで書いてあるしの水を待つのない待つフライ待つグレンところに住んだからやめろコーティーブラコーティーパイポの修理が修理がのグリーンダイのポンポコビーポンポコの案の上級名のジョウスケ来い中ゲム主ゲム五行のすり切れカイチャリ水魚の水魚松雲来松フライ松クーネルところに住むところやブラコーチパイポの修理がのグリーンダイのポンポコビープロスタカンだ
I don't know if it's because I don't know the language or if it's that funny in Japan as well, but it gets me to the point that I try to say what they're saying every time I see it. Other than that, not really much to say about the Full Metal Alchemist dub. It's as fantastic as the show itself in both animes' cases. Speaking of fantastic anime, Cowboy Bebop is in my opinion the most spectacular anime whose dub is as worthy of note as the anime itself. Never has an anime's dub captured the essence of each character so perfectly. Never has each character for a Japanese cartoon been articulated by an English-speaking bloke so profoundly and fittingly for every one of the respective cast members. Steve Blum is probably the one people will recognize the most for his many roles in other anime and cartoons. And his voice as Spike Spiegel is not lost in the pile of roles he's played after his career breakthrough with Cowboy Bebop. All this positive talk about the dub of a masterpiece, yet most people don't know that the process for dubbing it was actually pretty awful. And I mean awful to the point that stuff was being done at basically the last minute at times. Not to mention the fact that this was Steve Blum's first major role and it was was as the main character of this hit series. All this to say that the fact that the dub ended up good at all, despite the poor work conditions and deadline and such, is a miracle upon a miracle. Let alone the fact that it's regarded as one of the best dubs to this day. I believe Mother's Basement is the one who goes into further detail about the struggles of this dub in one of his videos, so check that out if you want to know more about it. Over here, I shall be moving on to Yu Yu Hakusho in the meantime, with nothing to say about it except
You're a meshy.
because the only thing to say about this show is that it's a classic. It's a classic that if you haven't seen yet, you shouldn't be watching any anime until you do. The other Ghost Story, Ghost Stories on the other hand, is not a classic, and has an original story so bad that the dub crew made an official parody out of it. It's hilarious. Definitely recommend if you want a good laugh, and yeah.
Think of a big black man chasing you!
I don't know if this dub was scripted or pure improv, but either way, it produced one of the best dubs ever.
Come on, jump. I said jump!
Sentimental flashback time is over, you stupid Betty-loving bitch! If you don't throw that thing, I'm tossing you!
Shirotabi, please forgive me for bringing you back to life. I know now that it could never work between us. As much as we wanted to, it could never be. Not because you're a rabbit, but because you're black.
And finally, for the actual best anime to ever exist, along with far and away the best dub in existence, Kirby Right Back At Ya. Now I do plan to make a full-on video talking about the Kirby anime, dub and sub, so I'll keep this brief. Kirby Right Back At Ya is a must-see for any true Kirby fans, with Hoshino Kabi following it up with a more serious take on the series. Starting with the opening, we are brought yet another banger by 4Kids. Like if 4Kids did one thing right, it was the damn openings. Pokemon, Sonic X, the One Piece rap, bro. Kirby Right Back At Ya got one of the best openings ever, while Hoshino Kabi got this. Pretty bad if you ask anyone with halfway decent takes. The leitmotifs they use for it are pretty nice. The second opening, on the other hand, fantastical. Chef's Kiss almost rivals the English opening, which was so good they never needed to change it to begin with. The dubbing itself is immaculate in every sense of the word. Every character from the games has an accent. King Dedede, yes, King, has a country accent, which you could say stems from the fact that this dreamland is a southern country, and Dedede and Escargoon say Zoe at the end of almost all their sentences in the sub. Meta Knight is a Spanish knight with an incredibly fun accent to match it. That I can guarantee stems from the Mexican guitar riff he gets as a little theme in the sub. He also gets a new one in the dub. Following him is Sword and Blade Knight, both having different accents. Sword has a light British accent and Blade Knight has a
Away! Away! It's all right, it's all right. If we can start racing right, put it out. Yeah, it's all right reason. You're a sorrow-riding great warrior.
We want to make your cause our cause.
Australian accent? I think that's what it's supposed to be, but it ends up just sounding like gibberish for the whole show. It's honestly pretty funny, which matches the tone of the whole dub, taking a lighter approach to what should be a lighter show. Japan and Sakurai say otherwise though. Knuckle Joe has a New Yorker accent, Nightmare I suppose has an evil accent, and Kirby just speaks alien. Or chicken for the Spanish audience. In the sub, he'll yell attack names and say regular names, which is as adorable as Pollo. But in the dub, he just says Pollo. And confusing dub overs in the first few episodes of the dub, which his dub voice, when it's used, it's probably the only problem I have with the dub because it's just...
Chip! Chip! I'm a brother! Tough!
it doesn't work. Other than that, the rest of the dub, from DDD's Lab to the Salesman Guy, everyone has a memorable, goofy voice, though still serious enough for you to take them more seriously when the time comes for that. So, aside from 4Kids, that's all you should need to know about sub versus dub. Some dubs are good, the bulk is bad, but at the end of the day, for the most part, if you want to watch an anime dubbed, it really doesn't matter. The only time something should really be said is when the dub will ruin the experience because Japanese culture and appreciation is needed for it, like with JoJo's, Gintama, and such. Still though, people who watch sub have every right to judge you for watching dub. I mean, you're too lazy to read some subtitles. Visually impaired people obviously have an exception there, but otherwise, just go for the better quality. You're not special for watching dubs, you're just lame. And don't use that, oh, but what if you're doing something and you want to listen to it instead of watching because you're busy? Bro, get that out of here. If you're really too busy to watch it, then why bother listening to it? You're ignoring the work put into the animation, and you're probably not even gonna retain half the information given since you're not giving your full attention. Stop listening and start watching, your bum ass. And you know what I just found out? People actually out here watching the One Piece in dub. Now, I don't watch One Piece and I don't ever plan to, but even I know that watching the anime at all is disrespectful to the pure blood, sweat, and soul put into that damn manga. But then people really take it a step further and watch the dub of already mid-adaptation, like, boy, they don't get y'all. But don't let that take away from the experience you had with your favorite dubbed anime, because when they pop off, they pop off.
Alphonse! Look at me! I promise! Someday soon, I'm coming back for you! Just you wait! Wait for me!
Who specifically sent the Ahekias out to eliminate the boy? What's the problem? Didn't I make the question clear enough for you?
Wake up to reality. Nothing ever goes as planned in this accursed world. The longer you live, the more you will realize that the only things that truly exist in this reality are merely pain, suffering, and futility. As long as there is a concept of victors, the vanquished will also exist.
What in the hell are you doing to my lieutenant?
You damn human! Don't you underestimate me!
Don't go back on my word. That's my ninja way.
Focus your mind on the business at hand. You give up on everything because you can't commit to anything.
Let me guess, did you pick up that cute saying from a fortune cookie? I'm trying, okay? But you're working me to death here!
Approaching death is the key to your training.
What?
It is called training under critical conditions. You must push your body all the way to its breaking point. Only then will you reach beyond your physical limits. Always quit anytime the answer wasn't served on a silver plate. Shut up!
Do not waste yourself on them. Kirby has a far more powerful foe. One that he will face very soon.
Let's get something straight. Some friends call me Kakarot, but I'm Goku and you're not my friend. But you forgot one thing. I'm my father's son!
Fight you? No, I want to kill you.
Okay, you're messy. It's all you. I did what I could. Now beat him for all of us. Make my death count, okay?
Well, whatever happens,
happens. Look at my eyes, Faye. One of them is a fake because I lost it in an accident. Since then, I've been seeing the past in one eye and the present in the other. Never the whole picture.
You've never told me anything about yourself. So don't tell me now. And now you're leaving, just like that. Why do you have to go? Where are you going? What are you going to do? Just throw your life away like it was nothing?
I'm not going there to die. I'm going to find out if I'm really alive. I have to do it, Faye.
Epilogue. Man, I was not expecting the video to be this long. I was thinking it would be 2 pages max. Whatever. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching until the end, and have a great day. Oh yeah, and always remember to stay ambitious. Been slacking on saying that lately.